Snow fell silently over the trees. The forest was cold, dark, and quiet. Jacob moved carefully through the thick snow, holding his pulse rifle close to his chest. His breath showed in the air like smoke. He was alone now. His squad had been ambushed 3 hours ago by something not human. The command base said it was just local wildlife, but Jacob had seen what those creatures did. They moved fast, hunted in groups, and left no bodies behind. Only red marks in the snow. Claw marks. Blood trails. Jacob had joined this mission, thinking it would be easy, just another guard post on a snowy alien moon. But that morning, the sky had turned red. Communication towers exploded. Screams filled the radio. Something had gone wrong. Now. He was walking through the deep woods with no signal, no backup, and almost no hope. He stopped near a frozen creek. The water beneath the ice still moved. He crouched and checked his rifle. One power cell left. If something attacked, it had to count. Suddenly he heard it. Snow crunching behind him. Jacob turned fast, rifle up. But he saw nothing. Just the trees. The silence returned. He stood for a long time, heart pounding. Then a soft voice spoke behind him. "You smell like fire and steel." Jacob spun again. This time, he saw her. She stood only a few feet away. Tall, elegant, and covered in soft, white fur. Her body was shaped like a woman's, but with long ears on top of her head and a thick tail behind her. Her eyes were bright blue and glowing in the dark. Jacob's hand tightened on the trigger. "What are you?" he asked. She tilted her head, her ears twitching slightly. "You almost stepped into one of our traps," she said, "but I moved it." He didn't know what to say. She didn't move closer. She just stood there in the snow, breathing gently. Her fur shimmered in the soft light. "You saved me?" Jacob asked. The alien girl nodded once. "My name is Ari," she said. "Your people fight without seeing. You shoot at every shadow. But you stopped. You watched the stream. You listened. That means something." Jacob slowly lowered his rifle, but didn't drop it. His muscles were tense. He couldn't trust her. "Not yet. Why are your people attacking us?" he asked. I looked down. Her voice turned quiet. "Your base was built over our sacred land. You broke the old stone. You didn't ask. Our leader said you declared war." Jacob felt his stomach twist. They hadn't known. Or maybe command didn't care. "I didn't break anything," he said. "I know," Ari replied. "That's why I pulled you from the fire. I want to understand humans." Jacob looked at her again. Her fur looked warm. Her shape was strange but beautiful. Her long fingers moved slightly, like she was nervous. She wasn't wearing much, just natural fur and a small belt with tools. "I have to get back to my base," he said. I shook her head. "There is no base," she said. "It burned. Your people ran. The snow is red behind you." His legs felt weak. He knew she was telling the truth. "So I'm the last one?" he whispered. "Maybe not the last," she said gently. "But alone, yes." They stood in silence. Then Ari took a step closer. "I want to show you something," she said. "If you trust me." Jacob didn't answer right away. But she didn't rush him. She just waited, watching his eyes. "Okay," he said. "But if this is a trick..." She smiled softly. "I could have killed you when you slept under that log. I didn't." She turned and started walking, her tail swaying behind her. Jacob followed. They moved quietly through the trees. After a while, they reached a small clearing. A fire was already burning there. It was warm, glowing, with logs set perfectly. "You made this?" Jacob asked. I nodded. "I come here to think." She sat near the fire, her legs crossed. She looked up at him, and then did something strange. She leaned forward, lowered her head, and pushed her long ears toward him. "Do it," she said with a playful tone. "Pet them." Jacob blinked. "What? My ears, you want to. I can. Smell your curiosity. What happens if I do? She smiled wider now. Then the forest knows. I've chosen you, and you've accepted. Jacob hesitated, heart racing. Then, slowly, he reached out. The moment his hand touched her ear, a warm hum filled the air. The fire glowed brighter. Ari's eyes closed. She leaned into his touch. You're not just a soldier anymore, she whispered. Now you're mine. And the wind moved through the trees like a whisper of something ancient waking up. Asterisk. Jacob didn't pull his hand back. Her ear was softer than anything he had ever touched. And warm too, like touching a living memory. He didn't know what he was supposed to feel. But he felt something. Ari slowly opened her eyes. Her glowing pupils locked on his. There was no laughter in her face now. Only something serious. Something old. You touch the ears of a hunt-born female, she said quietly. That means something to my kind. Jacob felt a chill, this time not from the snow. You're saying, I accepted some kind of bond? Yes, she said. But don't worry, you're not trapped. You are chosen. It means I'll protect you, I'll guide you, and I'll teach you how to survive here. Jacob sat down near the fire. He didn't have many options. His whole unit was gone. His command was gone. But this strange, beautiful alien she had spared him. And now she claimed him. He looked into the flames. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I didn't come here to break anything. I know, Ari said, pulling her knees to her chest. But humans don't ask. They just take. You weren't the first. Others came before. Hunters, explorers, they shot anything that moved. Jacob sighed. They never told us that. They said this planet was empty. Cold, yes, but unclaimed. It was never empty, she said, eyes flickering in the firelight. You just didn't see us. The fire cracked. The wind howled softly through the trees. Jacob looked up at the stars. The sky was clear now. But everything in his world had changed. Ari watched him silently. Then she asked, do all humans fight because they're ordered to? He shook his head. Some fight because they believe in something. Others because they have nowhere else to go. Which one are you? Jacob paused, maybe both. She nodded like she understood. Then her ears twitched suddenly. She stood up fast and looked toward the edge of the clearing. What is it? Jacob whispered, standing too. Ari sniffed the air. Her tail stiffened. Hunters, my kind. 2 of them. They've been tracking you. Jacob's heart jumped. He grabbed his rifle. Will they attack? Ari turned to him, her eyes serious. If they see you alone, yes. They won't ask questions. But if they see you with me, will they listen? No, but they won't strike. Not at first. What should we do? She looked at him. Then, to his surprise, she stepped close, very close, and placed her hand on his chest. Stay near me. Say nothing unless I speak. If they ask why you live, I'll give them my answer. What's your answer? She smiled softly. You touched my ears. Before Jacob could respond, 2 tall figures stepped out of the trees. They were like Ari, but bigger male, broader, with dark gray and black fur. One carried a long spear. The other held a curved bone knife. They stopped. When they saw her, Ari, one of them growled. You broke the trail. You protected the outsider. I did, she said without fear. He is mine now. The 2 hunters looked at Jacob with cold, glowing eyes. He's a human, said the other. His kind burns our lands. Ari didn't move, and his kind also bleeds. He bled today. He fought alone. He showed mercy. He listened. He saw me and didn't shoot. The hunters glanced at each other. That means nothing. One growled. It means everything. She said. Then, she did something that made Jacob's stomach twist. She stepped between him and the hunters, open, exposed, as if she was shielding him. If you strike him, you strike me, she said. The forest went quiet. Then one of the hunters stepped back. Be careful, Ari, he warned. If the elders hear of this, they will, she said. I'll tell them myself. The hunters vanished into the dark trees again, their eyes watching until they were gone. Jacob let out the breath he'd been holding. That was close. Ari turned around. Her hand gently touched his shoulder. You're safe for now. But it's only beginning. He looked at her, unsure of what he was becoming part of. What now? We go to the old caves, she said. You need to be marked. If I'm truly choosing you, they need to see it. Marked? She smiled again. Don't worry. It doesn't hurt. But Jacob wasn't sure. And when he looked into her glowing eyes, he saw something wild and powerful. This was no rescue. This was transformation, and it had only just begun. Asterisk. The forest grew darker as they walked. The firelight was gone now, and the moon hung pale above the trees. Jacob followed Ari closely, his boots crunching in the deep snow. The cold bit through his jacket, but her presence made him feel strange, safer maybe. Or maybe more afraid, because he didn't know where this path led. How far to these caves? He asked quietly. Not far, Ari said. Her voice was soft but strong, like the sound of flowing water. We walk until the stones rise from the ground like teeth, you'll see. He didn't like the sound of that. The wind howled, and every shadow looked alive. Jacob held his rifle tight, but Ari walked without fear. Her fur shimmered in the dim light. She moved like part of the forest, silent, perfect. Jacob studied her as they walked. Those long ears twitched at every sound. Her tail swayed gently, brushing the snow. Her body was graceful, built for strength and speed. He didn't understand why she had chosen him, or what that meant for him. What happens if your people don't accept me? He asked. They will, she said without looking back. And if they don't? Ari stopped. Slowly she turned and stepped closer. Her eyes glowed bright in the dark. Then I fight for you, she said. Jacob stared at her. Fight? Who? Anyone who tries to take you from me. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned. For a moment, Jacob couldn't speak. No one had ever said something like that to him. She turned again and kept walking. They moved for another hour through deep snow, until the trees opened up. Jacob froze. Before them stood a wall of stone, jagged and black, rising high into the sky. At its base was a dark opening, a cave. It looked ancient, older than anything human hands had ever built. This is it, Ari said. Jacob felt his stomach twist. And what happens inside? She looked at him over her shoulder. You'll see. The cave was cold and wet. The air smelled of earth and something strange like wild herbs and smoke. The walls were covered with carvings. Strange marks. Symbols that glowed faintly in the dark. What is this place? Jacob whispered. Home of the first huntborn, Ari said. Where bonds are written. He didn't know what that meant. His boots scraped against stone as they went deeper. Then the passage opened into a wide chamber lit by blue fire. Jacob stopped and stared. In the center was a pool of water, glowing like liquid moonlight. Around it stood more carvings. And bones, big bones. Some looked like wolves. Others looked not like anything he knew. Come, Ari said. Jacob walked slowly to the edge of the pool. He could see his reflection, but it looked strange, twisted by the glow. His eyes looked brighter. Wilder. Take off your jacket, she said. Jacob hesitated. Why? You cannot carry the weight of steel here, she said softly. This is the place of flesh and spirit. He slowly removed his jacket and laid it on a rock. The cold hit him like knives. He shivered. Ari stepped close, her warmth brushing against him. Now your hands, she said. Give them to me. He held out his hands. Her claws were sharp but gentle as she traced lines across his palms, not cutting, just marking with a black paste from a small jar on her belt. The scent of it was strong, earthy, and wild. These marks mean you belong to my circle, she said. Anyone who sees them will know. Jacob swallowed hard. And if someone doesn't care? Then I kill them, she said simply. She took a deep breath, then touched his chest, leaving another mark over his heart. Her fingers lingered there. Her fur brushed his skin. He felt heat spread through him, deep and fierce. Now, she whispered, you mark me. She held out her hands. Jacob hesitated. He looked at the jar, at her. Then he dipped his fingers into the black paste and drew the same lines across her palms. Her skin was warm under the fur. Soft, almost too soft. When he finished, she leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his. You have done it, she whispered. Now the bond is real. The glow in the water grew brighter. The blue flames danced higher. Jacob's heart pounded. He didn't understand what magic was at work here, but he felt it. In his bones. In his blood. Then a loud growl echoed through the cave. Jacob spun around, grabbing for his rifle, but the sound came from the shadows near the wall. Two glowing eyes appeared, then another. Then more. Shapes moved out of the dark, huge shapes, covered in fur and armor made of bone. They were bigger than Ari, and they were circling. Ari, Jacob said slowly, his voice tight. Tell me. These are your friends. Her ears went back. Her tail stiffened. They are not, she said. Run. Jacob didn't ask questions. He ran. Ari grabbed his arm and pulled him toward a narrow tunnel on the side of the cave. The ground shook behind them as the giant creatures gave chase. Growls echoed off the walls. The sound was deep and full of rage. Who are they? Jacob shouted as they ran. Exiles, Ari said, her voice sharp. They were cast out long ago. They live in the dark and hate everything with a name. The tunnel twisted and narrowed. The blue light from the cave faded behind them. Jacob could barely see, but Ari moved like she knew every step. Her claws clicked softly on the stone. Jacob slipped more than once, but she never let go of him. A roar came from behind. Closer this time. They're gaining. Jacob said. I stopped suddenly. They stood at the edge of a deep pit. A broken bridge of stone crossed it, but it was old and cracked. One wrong step and they'd fall. We can make it, she said. You sure? Jacob asked. No, she replied. Then she jumped. She landed on the middle of the bridge and turned back. Come. Jacob took a deep breath and ran. The stone cracked under his foot as he crossed, but he didn't stop. He reached the other side and stumbled. Ari grabbed him again and pulled him forward just as one of the exiles reached the bridge. Beast jumped after them, but the stone gave way. The creature fell into the pit with a scream, its claws scraping against the rocks as it dropped into darkness. Jacob and Ari kept running. Finally, the tunnel opened into fresh air. The night sky welcomed them. Snow fell again. The forest was quiet. Jacob collapsed to his knees, breathing hard. His heart was pounding. I stood beside him, watching the cave. They won't follow in daylight, she said. They fear the open. Jacob looked up at her. You said this was a sacred place. Why were they there? They live beneath the old world, in places even the elders don't speak of. We disturbed them. He nodded slowly. So now they know I'm marked. Yes, Ari said. And they'll come again. Jacob stared at the trees. Why? Does it feel like I just stepped into something bigger than me? Because you have, she said. I knelt in front of him. She looked tired now. Her ears were low. Her hands trembled a little, but her eyes stayed strong. You didn't run from the bond. You didn't leave me in the cave. You marked me, even when the shadows were moving. That matters. Jacob met her gaze. You said I was yours. What does that mean now? Ari took his hand. It means we fight together. We live together, and if needed, we die together." He didn't speak. He just nodded. The cold crept back into his bones. The forest was silent, but too silent. Ari noticed it too. Her ears turned slowly. "They're here," she whispered. "Not the exiles, others." From the trees stepped 4 more huntborn. These ones wore armor made of carved wood and thick hide. They looked older, wiser, warriors. One of them, a tall female with silver fur and gold rings on her ears, stepped forward. She looked straight at Jacob. "You are the one," she said. Jacob stood slowly. "That depends on what you mean." She looked at Ari. "You bound him?" Ari nodded, with truth, not fear. The elder looked back at Jacob. Her voice was low but heavy. "Then the circle must decide. Come, the trials begin at dawn." Jacob blinked. "Trials?" Ari's face turned serious. "It's their way. If you are to be accepted, you must show strength. They will not just take my word. I thought marking me was enough." "For me it is," she said softly. "For them, it is not." The elder turned. "Follow or be forgotten." Ari helped Jacob to his feet. He took one last look at the cave, then at the sky. "What kind of trials?" he asked. I gave a small, tired smile. "The kind where only one thing matters," she said. "What's that?" "Survive." The sun had not yet risen, but the sky was turning gray. Jacob stood at the edge of a wide frozen clearing, surrounded by silent trees and silent eyes. The huntborn elders formed a circle around him. Some stood with arms crossed. Others held weapons, made of bone and crystal. None of them looked friendly. I stood just outside the circle, watching. Her face was calm, but her tail twitched with worry. Jacob's hands were cold. His breath showed in the air. He wore only a thin tunic now. They had taken his jacket, his rifle, everything human. They said if he wanted to be part of their circle, he had to come as himself. Nothing more. An old male with deep gray fur stepped forward. His voice was low and rough. "You are the outsider. You touched the ears of our sister. You marked her. Now we test your worth." Jacob said nothing. "You will face 3 trials." The old one continued. "One of mind, one of body, and one of heart. And if I fail?" Jacob asked. "Then you leave this land and never return," the elder said. "Or you die here." No one laughed. No one smiled. Ari met Jacob's eyes and nodded once. He understood. There was no escape from this. The first trial began. They brought him to a stone wall covered in symbols, shapes and carvings that glowed faintly. A younger huntborn stepped forward and spoke. "Choose the path that shows peace, not war. Choose. Wrong, and the wall rejects you." Jacob stared at the symbols. Some looked like weapons, others like stars, and a few showed animals resting or running. He reached out, then paused. He remembered Ari's words. "You listen. You see." He closed his eyes and listened. In the stillness he heard wind, water, the gentle sounds of life. He opened his eyes and placed his hand on the symbol of a wolf. Lying beside a human. The wall glowed brighter, then faded. The young huntborn bowed slightly. First trial passed. Jacob let out a quiet breath. One down. The second trial came quickly. They brought him to a frozen lake. The surface was cracked and slick. In the center stood a tall pole, wrapped with red fur. "You must reach it," said another elder. "But the ice is thin." Jacob looked at the others. No one offered help. He stepped onto the lake carefully. The ice groaned beneath him. Every step felt like walking on glass. He crawled on hands and knees, slow and steady. A crack snapped loud under him. He froze. Ari's voice whispered in the wind. "Move low. Stay near the edges." He followed her advice. After long shaking minutes, he reached the pole. He stood, touched the red fur, and raised his hand. From the trees, a deep drum beat echoed once. Second trial passed, but Jacob's fingers were stiff. and his legs shook from cold. The third trial was the hardest. They led him to a stone platform. Deep in the woods, a hunt-born cova, small one with short ears and wide, scared eyes, stood at the center, shivering. "Here is the test of heart," the elder said. "She is not yours, she is weak. A true hunter leaves the weak behind. What will you do?" Jacob looked at the child. She was cold, her fur was wet. She didn't speak, just stared at him with wide eyes. He didn't think. He knelt beside her and wrapped his arms around her. His body blocked the wind. He whispered gently, telling her she was safe. The other huntborn watched. Some frowned, some nodded. The old male stepped forward. "You are not one of us," he said. "But you care like one of us." Then he raised his hand and drew a long claw across his own palm. Blood touched the snow. "With this mark, we accept the bond. The trials are done." Ari ran to Jacob. Her eyes were wet. She placed her hands on his face and pressed her forehead to his. "You did it," she whispered. "You're one of us now." He held her close. The child hugged his leg, still shaking, but safe. Jacob looked around the forest. At the faces once filled with hate, now filled with something else, respect. He didn't know what would happen next. But for the first time, he wasn't lost. He belonged. Snow fell gently over the village. Fires burned in large stone bowls. The sound of soft drums and quiet voices filled the air. Jacob sat beside Ari near the central fire. Huntborn children played in the snow. Elders spoke in slow, deep tones. For the first time, things felt peaceful. Jacob wore new clothes, now furs and leathers given to him by the circle. The black marks still covered his hands and chest, and the other huntborn no longer looked at him with hate. Some even nodded as they passed. Ari leaned against him, her tail curled around her legs. Her ears twitched softly, and her eyes were calm. "You passed all 3 trials," she said. "Many of our kind never do." Jacob smiled faintly. "I didn't think I would either." "You didn't win by force," she said. "You won by choice. That's what matters." They sat in silence for a while. The fire crackled, snow melted on the stones. Then, in the distance, a howl broke the stillness. Ari stood at once. Her ears lifted. Jacob followed her eyes. She was staring at the woods. "That's not one of ours," she whispered. The howl came again, louder, deeper, full of rage. "The exiles," Jacob said. "They've come," Ari nodded. "They waited until nightfall." Drums stopped. The village froze. Warriors gathered their weapons. Elders gave orders with sharp voices. Mothers pulled cubs indoors. I turned to Jacob. "You don't have to fight. You passed. You earned your place." Jacob shook his head. "No, I'm not leaving you." She looked at him for a moment, then slowly smiled. "Good." Minutes later, the forest exploded with sound. The exiles came, fast, giant beasts with glowing eyes and wild fur, their bodies twisted by years in the dark. They broke through the tree line, roaring. Huntborn warriors met them head-on. Jacob fought beside Ari, using a bone blade given to him after the trials. He had no training with it, but he moved with purpose. He ducked, slashed, defended. One of the exiles lunged at him. Ari tackled it mid-air. They fought as one. Ari was faster than anyone Jacob had ever seen. She tore through 2 attackers before spinning to cover Jacob's side. He moved behind her, blocking another with his blade. Their movements matched perfectly, but the exiles kept coming. Then, through the smoke and snow, a massive shape appeared. Twice as tall as any hunter. Its body was black, its eyes burning orange. "The broken alpha," Ari whispered. "The one who leads them." The beast charged. Jacob grabbed a spear and threw it, but it bounced off the creature's hide. Alpha struck 2 warriors aside and headed straight for Ari. Jacob ran. He didn't think. He leapt between them, shoving Ari to the side. The alpha's claw hit his shoulder, sending him flying. Pain exploded in his chest. He hit the ground hard, gasping. Ari screamed. She leapt onto the alpha's back, clawing at its neck. It roared and tried to shake her off. Jacob crawled toward his blade, his arm burning with pain. Then he saw her fall. Ari hit the snow, dazed. The alpha raised its claw over her. Jacob stood. He grabbed the blade and charged. The snow disappeared under his feet. His voice echoed across the clearing as he drove the weapon into the beast's chest with all his strength. The alpha howled. It staggered back, then fell. Silenced. The remaining exiles froze. One by one, they turned and vanished into the trees. It was over. Jacob dropped to his knees. Blood covered his side. He looked around, blinking through the snow. Then Ari was there, arms around him, holding him tight. "You saved me," she whispered. He smiled weakly. "Guess that makes us even. You chose me, and I chose you." Their foreheads touched again. Around them the Huntborn gathered in a circle. The elder with silver fur stepped forward and placed her hand on Jacob's shoulder. "Today," she said loudly, "we saw more than a human. We saw a heart that beats with ours." Cheers rose from the crowd. Drums started again. That night, under the full moon, the bond between Ari and Jacob was made sacred. They stood in front of the flame as the village chanted. She touched his marked hands. He brushed her ears, now with care. He had arrived as a soldier. Now he stood as her mate. And the forest ancient, cold and wild, finally called him one of its own.